Welcome to Rotorua, a city famous for tourism and extreme sports. Usually when I visit this great city, I've got my bike and my running shoes and I'm here to compete in a multi-sport event where I generally end up covered in mud and soaking wet. But not today. Today I'm here for something completely different. I've come to meet Francis from Grow Rotorua, and he's going to tell me all about the amazing agricultural initiatives that they've got going on. So let's go and meet him.
I'm originally from Christchurch and done all sorts of jobs really. Used to grow tomatoes. Moved up here just over 3 and a bit years ago to come and lead the economic development agency, Grow Rotorua. I'm obviously based here in Rotorua. And the purpose of that was to try and grow the economy in 4 sectors. So there was tourism, forestry and wood processing, agribusiness and geothermal. Well, I just like to say to people that my phone is my office. I can pick up my emails and text messages and phone calls. Even though we're focused on the Rotorua region, we do work with other people across the Bay of Plenty and across the world. You know, I'll be phoning someone up in Austria or the UK or Australia or the States or France. Physically, we were based just over here in the council offices, which was great. We've now moved into a new office with the destination marketing team because we're going to put the economic unit and the marketing unit together and try and leverage up and grow that side of it. But we go where the best people are, we go where the opportunity is. We don't need to be really physically based, but I think we're at a point now thinking about that question where we should really look at setting up a shop front so that people can physically see it, drop in, have a co-working space, have information available. We're probably at the point in our life cycle where we should be doing that, and there's plans to do that soon.
What was it about the role that really appealed to you?
Well, it's quite simple. If I had to write the perfect job description, this was it, you know, and I just decided on the day that job's mine, and it turned out to be. So that was really, really good, and it's been a heck of a lot of fun and meet a lot of good people and starting to make some good progress. Even though we're looking at 4 sectors, we tend to focus on opportunities that come across our path within those sectors, wherever they come from. So it's very much investment projects. So the way that we work is an idea comes along, an opportunity, we test that, we try and turn that into a business case, an investable opportunity, and attract people to invest in it, to make it happen, to create jobs, to improve the economy, to look after the environment. And also here in Rotorua, because we have 36% Maori population and quite a strong Maori economy asset base, is to try and get that, see if we can facilitate their investment and help them grow as well.
So where do those ideas come from?
Oh, look, Sarah, they come from anywhere and everywhere. You know, the term I use is we pull rabbits out of hats where they don't exist, you know. And it could be any sorts of things. It could be someone just phones up, it could be someone sees an article, it could be someone having a game of golf, which is my chairman, so he plays golf, so people come up with ideas. They can be anywhere. And I would say there's hardly a week or month goes past where some new opportunity doesn't come along. And we were discussing one just yesterday actually about the whole film industry here in the Bay of Plenty. You know, people like Tim Weir and Morrison and Cliff Curtis, and really start to say there's an opportunity here to build on that, and we'll pick it up and see if we can run with it.
So what are some of the things that you're doing in the agricultural sector?
In the agricultural sector, you really have to start with the background story about the lakes and the pressure on those in terms of environmental impacts. We have 14 beautiful lakes here around the Rotorua region, and they're a huge part of our beautiful natural environment, very, very special to the Maori people, and a big part of the whole tourism sector, which is quite big here in Rotorua. So because of that, the farming pressure on the land and the lakes, with the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, Ministry for the Environment, the Rotorua Lakes Council, a combined effort to clean those up, and as part of that, having a look at what activity is going on the land. You know, one option was for farmers to stop farming, basically, or cut down stock numbers, or look at alternatives. So what we did is said, well, we'll have a scout around at the alternatives and see which ones look like they make sense, and see if people are interested in picking those up. So I guess we've done maybe 4 or 5 key areas that we've focused on for this region, so we can chat some more about those.
Yeah, tell me about some of those.
Okay, so particularly around the Rotorua Lake Rotorua catchment, we've got about 24 dairy farms, about 15,000 hectares, about 5,000 of that in dairy. And that was one key area. The rest in sort of sheep and beef. There's virtually no cropping here except a bit of maize growing. So the real big focus around this area was around the dairy and the sheep and beef farming.
So if I'm a typical dairy farmer struggling at the moment because, like you mentioned, the money I'm receiving from my milk isn't even helping me cover costs.
Yes.
What options have I got in terms of getting some subsidies or some help to maybe grow some manuka or improve what I'm doing with water?
That's part of what this land use low nitrogen fund is to set up that use that 3.5 million to really provide technical support and help in business cases and whatever, so that it's easily accessible and there is some support in behind that, and these are verifiable businesses or the risks are understood, so that particular fund is focused on that side of it. And as I say, our focus is more on how do we get the business going that gets people into these better games here. So we're very lucky in the Bay of Plenty. We have a program called the Bay of Connections and the Regional Growth Study with the government. It's regional programs, and all these ones that we've talked about and several others are all part of that program. So they're on the government's agenda. The Regional Economic Development Ministers Group is very focused on wanting to see progress. So we turn that around and say, well, if you help us, we'll help you make some progress, yeah. So that's a bit of a good team effort, and it's great that the government sort of got a lens on it now. And particularly across the Bay of Plenty, as I mentioned, the Maori economy, a lot of land, a lot of assets. I think we're 8 to 9 billion in assets here in the Bay of Plenty. A lot of it unused or underutilised land that could go into high value kiwi fruit or avocados or berries or converted into something else.
Hugh Jelly is a large animal vet with a focus on a new approach.
I'm a veterinarian, and I guess I worked specifically in the dairy industry for quite a long time. My 2 areas of special interest are reproduction and ruminant nutrition. But most recently I've worked with dairy farms to try and help improve the business of dairying. So I've worked with large herds dairy farms in dairy systems and looked at ways that we can actually try and improve the business of dairying, and that's really about productive outcomes. The challenging part of that actually is in New Zealand, ironically, our business is not about necessarily being better dairy farms. It's actually about leveraging land values and trying to grow wealth through land aggregation. So I'd probably say about 12 years ago I realised that I was failing. So when I look at what I was doing, the clients I was working with and the changes that I was making, I could just see that actually from a whole lot of points of view, dairying was going the wrong way. And I had a real choice to make. I either got out or I looked at how we could change that. And like a mug, I think I chose the latter one. And so still trying to work on that. But that's really looking at, because what I see happening on farms is that cows are not necessarily being better looked after. People working in the industry are not doing any better. In fact, and the whole rural economy is really going backwards because of what we call the industrialisation of dairying. So those are things that I've really set out to try and change.
So what are the areas that you focus on with the farmers that you work with?
There are no areas. It's actually, it's got to be all of this thing. I mean, we make this, we believe that we can deal with 1 or 2 areas as almost like silver bullets and we're going to make a difference. This is actually about a philosophy. It's about behaviour change. It's about recognising the direction agriculture in New Zealand's going is not consistent with New Zealand's ability to get close to a marketplace. So New Zealand's got a unique point of difference. It's brand New Zealand used to be, I think, about the 21st strongest brand in the world. We're probably I know we're impacting on that globally because of, we've got this commodity focus around our agriculture. what was in 1870 or something, we started putting mutton on the Dunedin and shipping it off to the world, and we have this expectation that whatever we grow, someone's going to buy. Well, we now have to start to realise that the consumers are changing, they're looking for different things. New Zealand's got a unique point of difference, and we need to take that to the marketplace, and that's actually about taking a change across the base of our whole agriculture. We talk about going back to the future, it's the way we used to farm.
So what changes are farmers having to make on farm within their practices to be able to produce these types of products?
The biggest one is the change in thinking. So we don't want to be using any pesticides, we don't want to be using herbicides, we don't want to be using any chemicals, urea. We need to be able to stand up and say that this is the finest milk that we produce, that the world produces, and we test it, we validate that process throughout the whole chain of events. So we talk about going from soil right through to consumer. Every step of the way, it's a vertically integrated model, and we're able to validate all the way through that process that we can deliver on what we say. We test the milk for pesticides, we test it for herbicides, we show it's got better fatty acid profiles, it's got omega-3, 6 ratios better than fish. So you know, we can now start to talk about the health qualities of our product. So you've got a world that wants to actually feed its children better. We've got a world where people want to stay younger longer and be fit longer. So that's a market that this appeals to.
So how did you get involved with Grow Rotorua?
The big thing about Rotorua is that there's some real, obviously, farming's putting a whole lot more pressures on environmental issues, and a big one of those is our waterways. Waterways really are the thermometer of what are the impacts that we're making. A lot of focus in Rotorua, particularly Lake Rotorua, around water quality, and the approach that Rotorua is taking is really to look at a regulatory framework to try and make those changes. I'm sure what you guys have realised from dealing with farmers is actually when you start to tell farmers what to do, they generally give you the one finger salute. So Grow Rotorua recognises that there needed to be a more constructive way of actually dealing with those changes and how we make those changes. And those changes need to be more sustainable, and sustainability is about economic return as well as environmental return and a whole lot of other factors. So Grow Rotorua have looked at what I was doing, the changes that we were trying to make around farming from a holistic point of view, and saying, well, actually this presents a better commercial model. If we want farmers to change long term, it's really about the with them. What's in it for me? Why would they? What's the business model? So this is about giving farmers a commercial reason. They can be viable, they can farm viably within sensitive environments. We don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just say dairying shouldn't exist in these environments.
So I think today is not about countries competing with countries. Today is about regions competing with regions. So when you have a look at the Rotorua region, it's what can it do to optimise the assets that it has so that it's ahead of other regions. And in doing that, it's going to look at the assets, it'll look at geothermal and forestry and farming and say, what are the things that it can do that's going to keep it ahead? What are the behaviours that it will have that is going to put it ahead of other regions so that it can compete rather than just sit back and compare? I think one of the really good examples in Rotorua is geothermal. The temptation is to come down here, spend $100 million, drill down 1 kilometre and do a power station. The alternative is to drill down 100 metres and capture that heat and capture that pressure and do something in the tourism sector, say the spa sector. So you're taking hotels and you're 5-starring them and you're doing something around the day spas. This is totally different. It's looking at a different audience, it's looking at a different customer, but it's thinking different about the assets of Rotorua. So looking at geothermal is a classic as far as Rotorua is concerned, doing something that's different that absolutely sets it apart from any other region in New Zealand. I think Rotorua accept that in order to compete as a region, they need to think forward. I think the council has done the right thing. They've looked and said we need to bring in some talent that's going to ensure that Rotorua and the district is a part of the future economy. So, you know, they get people like me, they get people who work locally and know their assets, but they're doing it not because of what they want to achieve today, they're doing it because of what they want to achieve tomorrow. It's not now that counts. I can't change that. What I can change, what the council can change, what Rotorua can change, is they can change what Rotorua is in the future. That's what our job is today.
We're talking with Francis about how farmers get to know about Grow Rotorua.
There's a group called a stakeholder advisory group that's been running, so there have been presentations through there. We had a conference last year where we brought a lot of key players across all the sectors together with the latest information that was available, and it came straight from the horse's mouth, as it were, if they were a goat farmer or if they were a biological dairy farmer or if it was a honey company or whatever. So we got the people themselves to present to give it credibility. What we're doing now through the low nitrogen fund through the regional council, they've got about 3.5 million, so they've opened up 1.5 million in the first round, is one of the things that we're doing is we want to put those business cases together into something that's readable and presentable to the farming community, so really gloss them up, tidy them up, advertise them or whatever. So that's something that we'll hopefully get away in the next 3 or 4 months. But to be fair, the focus has mainly been on the rules and how that would work, and that's occupied people's minds without looking at alternatives. The other thing that's helped us, I think, in a way, in a perverse sort of way, is the dairy payout. So when that was $6, $7, $8, people weren't really that bothered. Now that it's $4 or $4.20, whatever it is, that's below the Dairy NZ break even of $5.30 per kilogram. So people are now, and banks are looking at it and saying, we need a more sustainable financial model.
And are farmers getting on board?
Starting to. There's a little bit of interest. As I said, the payout has got people's attention, but the real thing is we've said this has to be market-led. So our focus has been to find investors to come in to get them behind building the business, and if we stand in the market with a certain price for milk or anything else, those farmers will come on board. We know the interest is there. It's not all out of this district, there's some from other districts, so we know they're looking, but the key thing is to get the business going in the first place and get investment into that.
And how long is that investment and business side of things going to take to be able to get up and running?
Well, we're meeting someone this afternoon, so hopefully they sign a cheque. But it's the same as any, getting investment into a company that's a whole new thing. It takes a lot of courage and faith to do that. But what we do see through our role in Grow Rotorua is that there is a lot of interest in this place, in New Zealand, in the primary sector. So we have this pretty good investment brand in Rotorua and in New Zealand. We almost don't have to advertise, just wait for the phone to ring, as bizarre as that sounds. So we're in a good time, in the global economy and the New Zealand economy, where, if we can put a hand on our heart and really show that the market research work has been done, the business case is sound, we're pretty confident we'll attract that investment. It might take 6 months, it might take a year, or we might sign it off this afternoon.
Francis spoke about the ideas and opportunities that are presented to them, and also about the importance of having good, strong business cases to back the ideas up. In my profession, I often speak with clients who have fantastic ideas about things they could do differently in their business, but what's really important is having the strong numbers and financial analysis to back the ideas up. That way they can see if these ideas are actually going to turn into profit or not. The challenge that Francis and his team are going to face is that the ideas and opportunities they're seeing are new ones, so it's going to be much harder to put a business case together without the numbers. It's going to be really interesting to see how they deal with that. What else is the plan going forward beyond, say, that 6 months or that 1 year?
Yeah, well, that is to get that business going, and then we're looking at other businesses, particularly in the honey sector. There's a lot of interest there for people to, because this is not really hilly country, but we do have some hills and whatever. You will know on farms, there's patches on those farms that aren't always suitable to clear or put stock in. So if a farmer's got sort of 20, 30 hectares of that type of land, it's ideal to get some manuka in there and get some bees going and be part of that. And also looking at plantation manuka. In New Zealand right now, I know there's about 3.6 million seedlings being grown. That's about 3,500 hectares going in this year. So that says to me someone knows something about that business, because the demand is not the issue, it's supply. You know.
So if we fast forward 5 or 10 years, what do you hope is happening around here?
Oh, look, pretty simple, really. That we would see 2 or 3 of the businesses established here in Rotorua, you know, running quite well, export markets and domestic markets, high value products, and that the farmers are connected. You know, they're facing the consumer, they're not facing the farm, and knowing exactly, you know, what not having to worry about what the payout's going to be next year, because there's a business and demand over there. You still have those risks, but that's what we'd like to see, and that they're able to farm in ways that are financially, community-wise, because huge pressure on the farming community, and the land is sustainable, so everyone's happy and celebrating it. And I'd love to see, oh, they've gone. Some of these tourists that are floating around actually going out to those farms and seeing it, seeing the product, seeing how it's grown, seeing the results from the soil tests and whatever, and knowing that that's you know, understanding where, and they can flash their QR code on it and know that they're standing in exactly the same spot where that product came from, whatever it is. Yeah. So we want to see the whole thing integrated, you know. We'd also like to working with, well, is Wairiki Polytechnic and the Bay of Plenty Polytechnic have merged, now called Toyoho Mai, and we'd like to see them setting up programs that educate the young people coming through in these new industries, and the environmental connection and the social connection with it, so that there's a succession plan of people coming through that can run these properties or own them or whatever.
It's been a pretty typical day here in the Bay of Plenty. We've had rain, we've had wind, and we've had some patches of blue sky and sunshine. But luckily, throughout it all, we've been able to meet some of the team from Grow Rotorua and hear about the great projects that they're nurturing that are going to provide environmental and economic benefits, both for the Bay of Plenty and New Zealand. We'll see you next time on Thinking Forward.